We're live from New Delhi. You're watching TT India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Ukraine's Zelenskyy rules out ceding Donbas region in any deal with Russia, says US summit in Alaska, a personal victory for Putin. Hamas delegation arrives in Cairo to revive a US-backed Israel-Gaza ceasefire plan and hostage deal. Mexico hands over 26 more cartel suspects to U.S. authorities amid rising pressure from Trump to dismantle the country's powerful drug organizations. Third India and Singapore ministerial roundtable to convene in New Delhi today, expected to finalize key MOUs focused on trade, energy and technology. Extreme heat wave and wildfire continue to scorch parts of Europe. Millions are facing record heat. On to the details now. As the presidents of US and Russia are meeting in Alaska on Friday, concerns are emerging over Ukraine being left out, where a possible deal may emerge to end the conflict. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has called the summit a personal victory for Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. Zelenskyy has expressed concern that Russia will put forward hardline demands and that Trump will hammer out a deal that will demand Ukraine could cede swords of territory. But Zelenskyy seems to be standing his ground for now. He also ruled out withdrawing troops from Ukraine's eastern Donbas region as part of a peace deal. The Donbas encompasses the eastern Ukrainian regions of Lugansk and Donetsk, both of which Russia claims as its own and has sought to control since 2022. Zelenskyy also said he had received a signal from US envoy Steve Witkoff that Russia might agree to a ceasefire without elaborating. He said Friday's summit would effectively postpone new U.S. sanctions on Russia, sanctions that Trump had promised to impose if Putin refused to halt this conflict.
Також сьогодні була доповідь розвідки і військового командування про те, на що розраховує Путін і до чого реально готується. Зокрема, це і приготування воєнні. Він точно не готується до припинення вогню і війни. Путін налаштований тільки на те, щоб подати зустріч з Америкою як свою особисту перемогу. І далі продовжувати діяти так, як і раніше. Тиснути на Україну так, як і раніше.
Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the president wanted to size up Putin directly. Along those lines, Trump's administration tempered expectations for major progress towards a ceasefire, calling the summit a listening exercise.
I think this is a listening exercise for the president. Look, only one party that's involved in this war is going to be present. And so this is for the president to go and to get, again, a more firm and better understanding of how we can hopefully bring this war to an end.
Well, President Vladimir Putin held a phone call with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and updated him on planned talks the Russian leader will hold with U.S. President Donald Trump in Alaska this week. Kim and Putin discussed the development in the country's ties under a strategic partnership agreement signed last year, confirming their will to strengthen cooperation in the future. Well, Putin expressed appreciation for North Korea's help in liberating the Kursk region in western Russia in the conflict against Ukraine. The White House spokeswoman Karoline Leavitt said Friday's Alaska summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin is a listening exercise for the president.
I think this is a listening exercise for the president. Look, only one party that's involved in this war is going to be present. And so this is for the president to go and to get, again, a more firm and better understanding of how we can hopefully bring this war to an end.
And moving on to West Asia now, a Hamas delegation arrived in Cairo on Tuesday for talks on a possible agreement with Israel as Egypt presented the terror group with a new proposal for a comprehensive deal. Egypt, along with Qatar and the United States, has been trying to help Israel and Hamas reach peace. Despite efforts, no breakthrough has happened since a short-term truce earlier this year. The Hamas team, led by chief negotiator Khalil al-Hayya, were invited by Egypt to discuss the latest developments in ceasefire talks and prisoner exchanges. Cairo meetings will focus on ending hostilities and releasing prisoners. The discussions include a potential 60-day truce followed by longer negotiations. They also aim to exchange all Israeli captives, both alive and deceased, in one deal. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plan to expand military control over Gaza expected to be launched in October. The military chief of staff has warned it could endanger surviving hostages and prove a death trap for Israeli soldiers. It has also raised fears of further displacement and hardship among the Palestinians in the Gaza City region. Foreign ministers of 24 countries, including Britain, Canada, Australia, France and Japan, said on Tuesday the humanitarian crisis in Gaza had reached unimaginable levels and urged Israel to allow unrestricted aid into the enclave. Israel denies responsibility for hunger in Gaza, accusing Hamas of stealing aid. It says it has taken steps to increase deliveries, including pausing fighting for parts of the day in some areas and announcing protected routes for aid convoys. And moving on, the U.S. has announced criminal charges against Haitian gang leader Jimmy Barbecue, Cherry Sizer, and a North Carolina man, Basil Richardson, for conspiring to violate U.S. sanctions. The indictment alleges that Cherizier and Richardson solicited funds from the Haitian diaspora in the U.S. to support Cherizier's gang activities in Haiti, including paying salaries and purchasing firearms. Well, Cherizier's gang is accused of massacres, rapes, kidnappings, extortion, and arson. Cherizier's leads the G9 family and allies gang alliance, which controls much of Port-au-Prince. Meanwhile, Richardson is a naturalized U.S. citizen who grew up in Haiti and resides in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Cherizier's could face extradition to the U.S. with a $5 million reward offered for information leading to his arrest. And in the United States, members of the National Guard arrived at the D.C. Armory on Tuesday, a day after President Donald Trump announced he was deploying 800 National Guard troops to Washington and temporarily taking over the city's police department. In addition, Trump will send about 500 federal law enforcement agents to supplement the city's police force during the 30-day emergency deployment. It is the second time this summer that the Republican president has deployed troops to a city governed by Democrats. As part of the initiative, Trump gave temporary control of the D.C. Metropolitan Police to U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi. A federal trial began on Monday in San Francisco on whether Trump violated U.S. law by deploying National Guard troops to Los Angeles in June without the approval of California Governor Gavin Newsom. Washington Mayor Muriel Bowser sought to put a positive spin on the deployment, saying she wanted to use the extra personnel to drive down crime, despite earlier calling the move unsettling and unprecedented. And the U.S. President on Tuesday reiterated his call for the U.S. Federal Reserve to lower benchmark rates and cited a major lawsuit against Fed Chair Jerome Powell over renovations of the central bank's buildings. The potential move, suggested earlier in a presidential social media post, escalates Trump's continuing pressure on the central bank leader to cut interest rates. Well, White House officials have said they are investigating renovations of two historic buildings by the Fed, suggesting poor oversight and potential fraud have driven up the cost unnecessarily and that the project is inappropriately ostentatious to boot. Trump visited the site a couple of weeks ago and repeated those accusations, even as he met with Powell and made his case in person for cutting interest rates. And Mexico sent more than 24 suspected cartel members to the U.S. on Tuesday amid rising pressure from President Donald Trump in Mexico to dismantle the country's powerful drug organizations. Mexico's Attorney General's office and Security Ministry said in a joint statement that authorities shipped 26 prisoners wanted in the U.S. for ties to drug trafficking groups. Mexico said the U.S. Department of Justice had requested their extradition and that it would not seek the death penalty for the accused cartel members. Also, the transfer is the second of its kind this year. In February, Mexican authorities sent 29 alleged cartel leaders to the U.S. In a statement, the U.S. Embassy said among those extradited for key figures in the Jalisco New Generation cartel and the Sinaloa cartel, which are Mexico's two dominant organized crime groups. That Mexican President, Claudia Sheinbaum, permitted yet another large-scale extradition of Mexican nationals as she seeks to appease Trump while also avoiding unilateral U.S. military action in Mexico. And now to some weather updates. Now, a large swathe of southern and eastern Taiwan shut down on Wednesday and hundreds of flights were cancelled ahead of the arrival of Typhoon Portal, with thousands of people evacuated. Taiwan is regularly hit by typhoons, generally along its mountainous, sparsely populated east coast facing the Pacific. Authorities are also working to evacuate those whose homes are damaged by a July typhoon that brought record winds and damaged the electricity grid in a rare direct hit to Taiwan's west coast. After making landfall, the storm is expected to hit Taiwan's much more densely populated western coast before heading for China's southern province of Fujian later this week. And the wildfires raged in parts of Europe as millions across the continent face the harsh new reality of record-breaking summer temperatures. 3 men died and thousands were forced from their homes on Tuesday as wildfires fueled by heat waves scorched southern Europe. Heat alerts were issued in Italy, France, Spain, Portugal and the Balkans, with temperatures expected to soar above 40 degrees centigrade. Residents of France's southwestern city of Bordeaux described the heat as overwhelming as a heat wave led to widespread weather alerts across the country. As per the weather agency Meteo France, the city had a temperature of 41 degrees Celsius and will remain among the areas under the highest alert for heat on Wednesday. A wildfire in Spain's Chandrixa de Quexia continued to burn on Tuesday, destroying nearly 3,500 hectares, while thick smoke turned the sunset sky orange. Spain's meteorology service AEMET stated temperatures were set to reach 44 degrees Celsius in some regions, while minimal rainfall and windy conditions were expected to exacerbate the risk. Meanwhile, a time-lapse video showed a wildfire raging across hills close to a residential area on the Greek island of Zakynthos on Tuesday. The firefighters in the southern Albanian town of Delvina are also battling wildfires that have encircled the city on Tuesday. The officials stated that this is the first time the flames have reached Delvina, despite numerous wildfires in the past 2 weeks. Extra firefighters and army personnel joined efforts to control the blaze and protect the city, prompting precautionary evacuations and leaving Delvina's roads deserted. Large plumes of smoke were seen rising above Buljarica after a wildfire broke across the beach town in Montenegro. Authorities in Montenegro and other European countries issued various types of heat warnings on Tuesday. Climate change is causing hotter and dry summers in Europe, raising health risk and increasing the chances of wildfire. In Turkey, firefighters battled to contain a raging blaze on Tuesday as thick clouds of smoke and flames engulfed a wooden area in the western province of Izmir. Elsewhere, crews managed to contain several wildfires burning across the country, including the large blaze in the northwestern province of Çanakkale that forced hundreds of residents to flee their homes. In another continent, firefighters battled a wildfire on the outskirts of Halifax, Nova Scotia, as heatwave grips the nation on Tuesday in Canada. Also, some local businesses were evacuated. A thick smoke was seen rising from the fire as a firefighting plane dropped water from above. Officials said the fire in the Bears Lake area covered around 15 acres. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. Parliament passes new income tax bill and key sports reforms ahead of 5-day break. Nikkei tops 43,000 for first time, buoyed by US market rally and trade truce extension. And Indian surfers secure 2 quotas for Asian Games 2026 after its impressive show at the Asian Surfing Championships 2025.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Vipakshi Kuran. And moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a telephone call on Tuesday from the President of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev. President Mirziyoyev conveyed his warm greetings and felicitations to Prime Minister Modi and the people of India on the upcoming 79th Independence Day of India. The two leaders reviewed progress in several key areas of bilateral cooperation, including trade, connectivity, health, technology, and people-to-people ties. They also exchanged views on regional and global developments of mutual interest and reiterated their commitment to further strengthen the age-old ties between India and Central Asia. And the 18th International Olympiad on Astronomy and Astrophysics officially opened on Tuesday in Mumbai. The 10-day event will witness participation of nearly 300 high school students from a record 64 countries in what stands as the largest edition of the Olympiad to date. This is the second time that India is hosting the IOAA after the 2016 edition in Bhubaneswar. This year's theme is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The ancient Indian idea world is family under the one sky. This year's event marks a milestone in IOAA's history, with several countries from the global south participating for the first time, including Algeria, Bolivia, Qatar and Sri Lanka, among others. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi delivered a video message during the 18th International Olympiad on Astronomy and Astrophysics being held in Mumbai. In his message, Prime Minister Modi said that India is deeply committed to nurturing scientific curiosity and empowering young minds.
India is deeply committed to nurturing scientific curiosity and empowering young minds. Over 10 million students are understanding STEM concepts through hands-on experimentation in adult tinkering labs. This is creating a culture of a learning and innovation.
Well, the third round of the India-Singapore Ministerial Roundtable will be held in New Delhi on Wednesday. Indian ministers who will participate in the third ISMR are Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankar, and other union ministers, along with their Singaporean counterparts. Well, envisioned by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, ISMR is a unique mechanism for setting a new agenda for India-Singapore cooperation. Its inaugural meeting was held in New Delhi in September 2022 and the second meeting was held in Singapore in August 2024. India and Singapore share a comprehensive strategic partnership. The third round of ISMR will identify avenues to further broaden and deepen our bilateral relations. And Australian Army Chief Lieutenant General Simon Stewart is on an official visit to India. During his two-day visit to Pune on Wednesday and Thursday, he will interact with Lieutenant General Dheeraj Seth, General Officer Commanding-in-Chief, Southern Command, and visit the National Defence Academy, Khadakwasla. He is also scheduled to address the cadets on leadership, joint training and cooperation. He will also participate in other defence cooperation engagements. The high-level visit reaffirms the strong and growing India-Australia defence partnership and underscores the shared commitment of both nations towards a stable, secure and rules-based Indo-Pacific region. And Parliament on Tuesday passed a new income tax bill to replace the 6-decade-old Income Tax Act in 1961 before it took a 5-day break and will reconvene on August 18th. The Rajya Sabha returned the bill to the Lok Sabha with a voice note after its swift passage in the lower house last Monday within just 3 minutes amid opposition protest. This new Income Tax Bill 2025 aims to simplify and modernize India's income tax framework without altering existing tax rates, creating a more straightforward and taxpayer-friendly law set to come into force on the 1st of April 2026. The landmark National Sports Governance Bill was also passed, which will transform India's sporting landscape and make decision-making athlete-centric. The National Anti-Doping Amendment Bill, which reinforces NADA's autonomy as required by the World Anti-Doping Agency, was also passed by the Parliament. The two bills now await the President's assent to be notified as acts.
Governance Bill 2025 as passed by Lok Sabha to be taken into consideration.
During the discussion, Mandavia said that since sports is a public movement, its three major stakeholders, athletes, federations and government, needed to have mutual coordination and transparency to convert talent of the nation's sportspersons into medals.
प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा कि हमें आने वाले 10 साल में देश को स्पोर्ट्स सेक्टर में दुनिया में 1 से 10 क्रम में लाना है। हमें जब देश आज़ादी का शताब्दी वर्ष मनाता हो, यानी कि देश आज़ादी का 100 वर्ष मनाए, हमें विकसित भारत बनना है। विकसित भारत केवल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट को मोदी जी ने नहीं कहा है। मोदी जी ने कहा है कि देश सर्वांगीण क्षेत्र में उन्नति करे। स्पोर्ट्स सेक्टर में भी हम दुनिया में 1 से 5 नंबर के मेडल टैली में आना चाहते हैं। उसके लिए स्पोर्ट्स सेक्टर में गुड गवर्नेंस ये बहुत आवश्यक है।
While moving on, the Himalayas is our superpower. Nature is making us conscious about environment and conservation because when nature causes destruction, then it becomes difficult to handle it, said Prasar Bharati Chairman Navneet Sehgal. The Greening the Himalayas Initiative program was organized by India International Centre and Mountain Climate Trust at the India International Centre in Delhi. Addressing the program, Prasar Bharati Chairman Navneet Sehgal said that being India's national broadcaster, it is our responsibility to aware the people about environment conversation. He said that our future depends on the awareness towards environmental protection and nature conservation. He further added that we have to work in the present times on what kind of environment and natural environment we will leave behind for the coming generations. He also urged people to make collective efforts along with the government to save nature and the environment.
प्रकृति हमको बता रही है कि हमको प्रकृति के प्रति सचेत होना चाहिए। हमको प्रकृति की रक्षा के लिए और विशेषकर जो हमारे पहाड़ हैं, पहाड़ पे हमारे पेड़ हैं, हमारा जो जितना एनवायरनमेंट है वहाँ पर, उसके प्रति हमको हर एक नागरिक को इस देश के सचेत होना पड़ेगा। और ये सही समय है कि हम सीखें धराली जैसी घटनाओं से और पर्यावरण के प्रति अपनी जिम्मेदारियां निभाएं। हम अगली जनरेशन को, हम आने वाली अपनी पीढ़ी को एक बेहतर पर्यावरण देकर जाएं, एक बेहतर क्लाइमेट देकर जाएं। और ये ना हो कभी कि कोई कहे कि हिमालय कभी कागज़ों में देखना पड़े हमको। तो इसके लिए आवश्यक है कि हम सब लोग मिलें। सरकार जो अपना प्रयास कर रही है, समाज को एक साथ आना पड़ेगा। सरकार और समाज मिलके ही इसको आगे बढ़ा सकते हैं।
And on to some business news now. Japan's Nikkei rose above 43,000 points for the first time on Wednesday, tracking U.S. stocks, which powered to new highs after soft inflation data. In early trade, the Nikkei 225 index was at 43,062.55, up by 0.81%, having already hit a new intraday record high of 42,999 the previous day. Both the S&P 500 and Nasdaq finished at fresh records on Tuesday after U.S. inflation data showed a still subdued impact from U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs. Investors were also cheered by Trump extending by 90 days a trade truce with China. And now to some sports news now. India secured 2 quotas for the upcoming Asian Games 2026 from the Asian Surfing Championship 2025, which concluded in Mahabalipuram, Tamil Nadu on Tuesday. The slots, one each in men's and women's shotboard, were awarded based on ranking points earned at the continental meet, which served as the final qualifying event for Asian Games 2026. With this, India have now bagged the maximum 4 quotas for the Asian Games 2026 to be held in Aichi, Nagoya, Japan, where surfing will make its debut. India's first 2 quotas came at the 2024 edition of the championships in the Maldives. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.